Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. For those of you that are new around here, my name is Hannah and I'm an author from the southeast of England. I wrote my first book, number 47, last year and published it in July. So if you'd like to check it out, I'll leave the Amazon link in the description. So this week's video is a writing tag. I haven't done one for a while, but I spotted this one on Tabuggy's channel and I really enjoyed it. Tabuggy's great at tags, actually, to the point where I think they should probably write their own tag now. But I will link their channel in the description below, so you should definitely check it out. I think this tag originated from Christine Writer, so I'll stick their channel in the description as well. And yeah, let's get on with it. So this is the childhood writing tag. So basically just looking back at how you used to write as a kid and probably laughing at yourself. So the first question is, when and why did you start writing? So I started writing, the earliest stuff I can remember is probably from when I was very young, so about 10 or 11, and I used to write stories for my brother. He's quite a bit younger than me. He basically used to come up with his ideas, like, I want to hear a story about a dragon or a robot. This is what he sounds like. So then I used to write the story, and basically there was two ways. So I didn't think I had a good enough imagination to come up with this stuff, and everyone used to say when we were younger, like, oh, your brother's got like the wildest imagination, and he did have, like, he had some wild stuff, pretty weird stuff too, especially for a really small child. Let's just check he's okay. Anyway, he had some really crazy ideas, so I basically just wrote them for him, and I used to really enjoy like the art of writing, but I just didn't trust my own imagination, so we were a perfect duo. It's pretty good fun. The next question is, what is the first story you remember writing? The first story I remember writing in kind of full, I guess, when I was younger. I can't remember the title of it, but it was basically a little book that I made. I wrote it in like a school exercise book and then wrapped that in fax paper and made my own cover, and it looked very professional. I can't remember what it was called, but it was about a girl that was the usual really. She didn't fit in, she was a little bit bullied. She was basically me, and she found this watch thing on the way home, and basically when she put the watch on, she could turn into different animals, essentially. I feel like this is just really reinstating the fact that I didn't trust my own imagination, because looking back on this, the watch thing is clearly from Bernard's Watch that I used to watch when I was younger. If you're British, you know what that is. And the animal thing was probably from something like Animorphs, I think it was called, or like Power Rangers, where they turned into like the robot style animals. So yes, I clearly did not find my own imagination for some time when I was a kid. The next question is, what was the first full project you finished and when? The first proper project I finished, that actually probably would have been number 47. So I've written lots of short stories, lots of smaller things, but the first actual project that I started and set out to finish was number 47. So yeah, I published that last year. Number 4, what genre did you mostly write as a child, and has it changed over time? Okay. So when I used to write for my brother, it would have been whatever he wanted, and that probably would have been fantasy and sci-fi, because it was pretty much dragons or robots. So fantasy and sci-fi. And then I guess the story I wrote, the bad one about the watch, kind of fantasy, kind of sci-fi. And actually the first short story, like proper one that I actually wrote for a competition, and that was definitely sci-fi. And yes, it has changed, because I write thrillers primarily and horror now. Obviously, I know that, you know, they all kind of tie together in some respects. Like thrillers have elements of horror in, sci-fi tends to have elements of horror, horror can have elements of sci-fi, like they all kind of mingle. But I definitely don't go anywhere near fantasy anymore, because I'm just not good at it. And I don't read it very well either. So yeah, definitely changed. Number 5 is, do you remember the first piece of negative feedback you received? Yes, I do. I was at primary school and we had to write like a story about the war or a war. something, I don't remember exactly. But at the time, my dad was obsessed with an American comedy show called MASH, that I used to watch with him sometimes and used to kind of find quite funny. I'm not sure I'll find it so amusing anymore. And essentially, I just regurgitated a storyline from an episode of MASH and wrote it in my own words. And I remember the feedback that I got was pretty much like, yeah, your writing style's pretty good. Like, you're not bad for a kid. But I also watch MASH and I know exactly where this came from. So I basically, again, did not trust in my own imagination and just nicked someone else's idea. The next question is, who was your favourite character that you wrote as a child? I don't think I really have an answer for that. I don't really remember any of the characters enough to say that I had a favourite one. Something I do remember doing is I used to name my main characters the same thing. So for some reason I had an obsession with two names. So I really liked the name Sky, and the name Wren. So I clearly was desperate to be some kind of hippie child. So all of my female characters had one of those names. So I guess either Sky or Wren were my favourites. I just don't remember anything about them. Number 7 is share some old writing of yours. This took a while to dig out. So I mentioned this earlier. The first proper short story that I wrote, I actually entered into a competition with a company called Inkit. I'm sure lots of you have probably heard of them. I haven't used them in such a long time, but they used to hold like competitions, I think like every other month or something, for short stories. And the one that I entered was a sci-fi competition to mark the passing of Terry Pratchett. I was obsessed with Terry Pratchett as a kid, and then kind of probably up until I was about 18, 19. I still sometimes read it, but I'm not massively into it anymore. I think I more appreciate it than actually enjoy it. So yeah, I wrote this short story for this competition and it actually won. And I think that was the first time I thought like, oh, I could actually do this writing thing. This is not so bad. And then I got more into it and I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. So yeah, I have dug out my entry on the old Inkit, competition. And this is the prologue for Error 1. Our world is the perfect world. The others don't work. They're dysfunctional, lazy, broken, sputtering through the air, choking on their failures and unanswerable questions. Our world knows what to do to survive. It knows where to go, in what direction to travel, where to find the answers. But at what cost? Our world is Error 1, not Error 1. That's been done before. We've tried it. It failed. It fell. It looked like it might work, but we were fooled by our own blissful ignorance. This time we know what must be done to make sure it works. We know what to do to keep Error 1 happy. So that was the prologue. It's not so bad, I suppose. The next question is, what parts of your writing have you improved since then? I know one thing I've really improved since writing Error 1, and that's dialogue. I used to really struggle with dialogue. I don't really know why, because actually now I feel like I've improved it. I kind of struggle to remember why I struggled with it in the first place, if that makes sense. So when I write dialogue now, I just try and make it really natural because you want to read it how you would hear it. But actually in Error 1, I've read a little bit more of it and there's basically no dialogue for pages and pages. It's just description. So yeah, I've definitely improved on the dialogue. The next question, are there any parts of your writing that haven't changed much? Yes, definitely. I really enjoy writing in quite like a poetic way. I like the way that writing looks on the page. So I like seeing the long sentence and then the short sentence and then it chopped up, and I quite like a fragmented sentence, and the spaces and the pauses in slightly the wrong place to like emulate breathing and struggling and that kind of thing. And I quite like the feeling of writing quite poetic prose. And a lot of authors that I read also do that. So Max Porter is probably the best example of that I can think of. And someone like Kate Hamer, if you've not checked her out, she's very poetic, definitely recommend. Actually reading the little bit of Error 1 out loud, I definitely do still do that. I think maybe I've polished it a bit because reading the prologue of Erewhon, there were a lot of very short sentences, but I think I know now that you need to like pepper them through and like kind of get a rhythm to the way you write in kind of like poetry. Oh yeah, but that's definitely something I still do. The next question. The last question. If you could tell your childhood self one thing, what would it be? It would be to trust in your own imagination and not feel like you had to rely on someone else. I don't think this was anyone's fault, but something I remember from my childhood is basically being told that I didn't really have a very good imagination. I was always quite good at English and history at school, but I think primary school and the first couple of years of secondary school, I was always told I'm quite like formulaic and I quite like doing things in a certain way. And that's kind of bled through to my adult life. I really like procedure, which is really sad. But actually, being told those things as a kid kind of reinstated them and made me feel like I didn't really have much of an imagination. So I lent on my brothers or I lent on other people's. And I think it actually kind of took writing Erewhon and thinking this story, like this idea came out of my head and that was my own imagination to give myself that confidence. So I think if I could say one thing to my childhood self, it would be trust in your own imagination and just give it a go. Yeah, just try it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed doing this tag. It was really nice and quite reflective, actually. As I said, I will link the original 2 videos in the description below. And as it is a tag, I am going to tag a couple of people. So I'm going to tag Danny from DR Ranger Writing, because I'd really like to see some of his earlier work. I'd love to hear some of his early writing. And Dahlia Burrows. So both of those guys, I would love to see a video. I will stick those in the description too. So if you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon and all that other stuff. And if you do this video, please let me know because I'd love to watch yours too. Cool, thanks.